Alrighty, folks, you know I'm feeling great on a Tuesday morning because we're now 5-0 in our last 5 college basketball tier membership picks on my premium site. And I'll explain a little bit more about that at the end of the video. But with that, we're going to jump into some free content. Unfortunately, our first game is not on our big screen, but it's going to be Florida, Tennessee, and that'll be a 5 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Tennessee's minus 9.5, totals 159. The Vols are undefeated at home, and they've been tough to shoot against. Tennessee's allowing just 38% shooting from the field. Jonas Idu leads the roster in blocks, second on the roster in points. And speaking of point production, it's Dalton Neck, who is averaging over 17 points a game, and he's drilling 40% of his long balls. And unfortunately for Florida on the other side, well, the Gators have struggled on the defensive end of the court. They're 302nd in the nation in field goals allowed per game. And the Gators are allowing most of their points late. They're giving up over 42 second-half points per contest. Now, 4 out of the Gators' last 6 away from home did get over the total. And out of their last 16 at any location, the over cashed in nearly 70% of those contests. Now, Tennessee's gone 63% to the over for the entire season. Give me the Vols, minus 9.5, over 159. Next contest, Wake Forest, NC State. That'll be a 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off. NC State's minus 1.5, totals 149 and a hook. Now, the Wolfpacks, 8-1 straight up on their own court this year, and they've garnered victories this season over the likes of Virginia, Notre Dame, and Louisville. DJ Horn leads the roster in scoring, 43% shooting from downtown. Meanwhile, DJ Burns averages a dozen points a game himself. He's making 53% of his attempts from the field. Now, they're facing a Wake Forest team who lost 4 of 6 away from home this year. That does include neutral site games. And when it comes to defensive play, the Deacs allowed the majority of their points in the first half. Now, Wake Forest went 6-1 to the over in their last 7. NC State 63% to the over for the entire year. Give me NC State minus 1.5, over 149 and a hook. Next game, Purdue, Indiana, 7 o'clock Eastern start time. Purdue's the 9-point favorite, totals 151. Now, the Boilermakers are 15-2 on the year, and they've been really tough to outscore, especially in the first half. These guys are in the top 10 in the nation in first half points per game. And when it comes to rebounding the basketball, this is a top 20 rebounding team. Of course, most of that is thanks to 7'4" Zach Edey, who grabs 11 boards a game, and he also averages 22 points. Meanwhile, Braden Smith leads the Boilermakers in steals, and he's drilling 48% of his attempts from beyond the arc. They're facing an Indy team who allows more three-pointers a game than most clubs in college basketball. They rank 325th in three-pointers allowed per game. They also rank 302nd in the country in first-half points given up. Leal and Sparks are questionable for the Hoosiers. Indy saw overs recently against the likes of Nebraska, Auburn, and Michigan. Meanwhile, Purdue's 75% to the over in all of their games away from home. That does include neutral site contests. Give me Purdue minus 9, over 151. All right, next contest, TCU, Cincinnati. That'll be a 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Cincinnati's minus 2.5, totals 151 and a hook. Now, the Bearcats have been one of the tougher defensive teams in the Big 12. They're allowing just 65 points per contest, and they're a top 25 rebounding team on D. Victor Lakin grabs over 7.5 boards a game, team leader in points. Meanwhile, Dan Skillings is averaging just about a dozen points per contest himself. They're facing a TCU team who's been little threat shooting the long ball. Most of their damage is done in the paint. The Horned Frogs are making just 6 3-pointers a game. They're actually 300th in the nation in 3-pointers made per contest. Now, injury-wise, Aziz Bandogo is questionable for the Bearcats, although I'm pretty optimistic he'll actually suit up. We really haven't seen an aggressive overreaction to the line yet. Meanwhile, Cincy saw overs against the likes of Texas, Dayton, and Xavier recently. They're also 6-5 to the over in their last 11 home games. Give me Cincy minus 2.5 over 151 and a hook. Next game, little ACC action. Syracuse Pitt, 7 o'clock Eastern start time. The Pitt Panthers are minus 7, totals 146. Now, overall, Pitt's played pretty tough on the defensive end of the court this year. They're allowing just 66 points a game, and they've been impossible to shoot the long ball against. They're actually in the top 15 in the nation in guarding the three-pointer. Zach Austin leads the lineup in blocks, handful of boards per game as well. When it comes to offensive production, Blake Hinson's averaging over 18 points a night, and he's drilling 40% of his three-pointers. Now they're facing a Syracuse team who lost 3 of 4 road games this year, and they're having all kinds of problems on the defensive end of the court. They're allowing 40 second-half points a game. And speaking of boards, this is arguably the worst defensive rebounding team in the ACC. Syracuse currently ranks 336th in defensive boards per contest. Now, total-wise, Syracuse saw unders recently against the likes of BC, Georgetown, and LSU. They've also shot just 42% from the field in their last 10 gatherings with Pitt. So if you're into historical trends, you certainly want to think about that one there. Give me the Pitt Panthers, minus 7, under 146. Next matchup, Big 12, Baylor, K-State, 8 o'clock East. Kansas State is minus 1, totals 139.5. And even though the Wildcats are slightly favored in this one, well, K-State's they've been little threats shooting it from long range. K-State's making just 31% of their attempts from three-land. They've also had a tough time scoring points late. They're facing a Baylor squad who won their last 5 straight, and they played some pretty tough defense in the process. They're allowing just 68 points a game this season, and they're actually in the top 10 in defensive boards. 7-foot Eve Meese leads the program in rebounds, double-digit points a night on offense. When it comes to point production, the Bears are, their top 3 scorers are drilling well over 40% of their three-pointers collectively. Now, total-wise, Baylor saw their last 3 straight stay under the total, 6-3 to the under in their last 9. Now to K-State's last 9 ball games, the under cashed in all of them except for 1. Give me Baylor plus 1, under 139.5. Next contest, St. John's, Seton Hall, 8:30 p.m. East. Seton Hall's minus 1, totals 147. And even though Seton Hall's played very physical on defense this year, I do have concerns that maybe they're not built for a track meet, at least in this particular spot. They're making just 5 3-pointers a game, and they rank 208th in the country in second-half scoring. Now, leading scorer, Kadary Richmond, he's made just 5 3-pointers for the entire season. Meanwhile, Alamir Dawes, he's making only 41% of his field goals himself. Dawes is second on the roster in points. Now, the Pirates are facing a St. John's team who's limiting their opponents to just 41% shooting from the field themselves. Joel Soriano leads the lineup in blocks and rebounds. And aside from being the team's leading points getter, Soriano is currently in the top 15 in the country in both rebounds and shooting from the field. Now, Glenn Taylor's knocking down 43% of his attempts from three-land. 4 out of St. John's last 5 outings did get over the total. Overs against the likes of Providence, Villanova, and Butler, all in conference games. Meanwhile, Seton Hall saw their last 3 straight get over the total themselves. Those were all Big East opponents as well. Give me St. John's plus 1 over 147. Next matchup, little SEC action. I'm talking about Georgia, South Carolina. That'll be a 9 o'clock Eastern tip-off. South Carolina's minus 7.5. Total's 136 and a hook. Now, I do have some concerns about South Carolina offensively. They're averaging only 62 points a game against SEC competition this year. And B.J. Mack, he's making only 42% of his field goals, 30% shooting from downtown. Now, teammate Jacoby Wright, he hasn't been much better. Actually, he's been worse. Wright's making only 37% of his attempts from the field. And they're facing a Georgia team on the other side who's been incredibly tough to shoot against themselves. The Bulldogs are limiting their competition to just 40% shooting from the field. Silas Demary leads the lineup in steals. Jabari Abdur-Rahim is drilling 42% of his deep balls on offense. Georgia went 60% to the under in their last 10. They're also 4-1 to the under in all of their contests away from Athens. Meanwhile, South Carolina is 6-3 to the under in their last 9 home games. Give me Georgia plus 7.5, under 136 and a hook. Next contest, little Big Ten action. Wisconsin, Penn State, 9 o'clock Eastern tip. Wisconsin's minus 5.5 at the Bryce Jordan Center. Total's 146. Now, the Red Hot Badgers are on a 6-game winning streak. Victories over the likes of Northwestern, Ohio State, Nebraska, and Iowa. All in-conference games. Pretty good teams as well. And, of course, during that stretch, the Badgers covered the point spread in all of those victories except for one. Now, 7-foot Steven Crowell, he's making 57% of his field goals, 12 of 22 shooting from three land for the big man as well. And A.J. Storr leads the program in points per game at the moment. They're facing a Penn State team on the other side who's having all kinds of problems on D. They rank 309th in guarding the field goal. And aside from being one of the worst rebounding teams in the Big Ten, the Lions have been little threat shooting it on offense. They're making just 29% of their three-pointers. Now, Ace Baldwin Jr., he's making just 25% of his three balls, 35% shooting from the field, and he's the team's second leading scorer. And I'm not sure what happened to Puff Johnson, but he's making only 22% of his three balls himself. Far cry from his days at UNC. Now, Penn State's currently 60% to the under in the Bryce Jordan Center. Meanwhile, Wisconsin saw 5 out of their last 6 away from the Kohl Center stay under the line. Give me Wisconsin minus 5.5, under 146. Next contest should be a good one. Kansas, Oklahoma State, 9 o'clock East. The Kansas Jayhawks are minus 6.5 away from home. Total's 140 and a hook. Now, the number 3 ranked Jayhawks are 14-2 on the season. And they've beaten the likes of Oklahoma, TCU, and Missouri recently. And when it comes to defensive play, well, you just can't shoot on these guys. The Jayhawks are in the top 20 in defensive field goal percentage. Hunter Dickinson leads the lineup in blocks, 19 points a game on offense. When it comes to shooting the basketball, the 7'2" Dickinson is drilling over 47% of his three balls. Now, Kevin McCullough is averaging just about 20 points a game himself. And they're facing an Oklahoma State team who's on a 3-game skid. And they've been one of the worst covering teams in college basketball recently. They failed to cover in their last 6 straight. 31% against the number for the entire season. When it comes to the total, the Cowboys saw unders in 5 out of their last 8. Meanwhile, Kansas, they've gone 5-2 to the under in their 7 contests away from the Allen Fieldhouse this year. Give me Kansas minus 6.5, under 140 and a hook. Next ball game, Iowa State, BYU, 9 o'clock East. BYU's minus 4, totals 144. Now, the Cougs have been very good at the Marriott Center. They're 9-1 straight up on their own court. And BYU covered in 80% of those home games. And when it comes to offensive production, well, the Cougars really tend to light it up late in games. BYU's a top 5 point producing team in the second half. Trevin Nell, he's drilling 47% of his three-pointers, second on the roster in points. Meanwhile, Jackson Robinson leads the roster in scoring. Now, they're facing an Iowa State team who's looked terrible on offense over the past few weeks. They're averaging under 63 points a game in their last 3 straight. All were in-conference games. And as good as the Cyclones have been on offense, they haven't been overly impressive shooting the long ball. They're making only 6 3-pointers a game. Keyshawn Gilbert's making just 24% of his 3-pointers. Trey King's making just 21% of his 3 balls himself. And those 2 players I just mentioned are number 3 and 4 on the team in points per game. Now, the Cyclones saw 4 out of their last 5 stay under. K-State, Houston, and Oklahoma, they saw unders against. Meanwhile, BYU went 7-3 to the under in their last 10. Good for 70% during that stretch. Give me BYU -4, under 144. And with that, folks, we're going to jump into our next and final breakdown for the video. Utah State, New Mexico, 10:30 p.m. East. Now, New Mexico is the 6-point favorite. Total's 157. And even though they are favored by a couple of baskets, the Lobos did take the loss in 2 out of their last 4. Losses to the likes of UNLV and Colorado State. And when it comes to offensive production, they do have some issues shooting the basketball. They're making only 6 3-pointers a game. When it comes to shooting from the stripe, well, even worse. They're 302nd in the nation in offensive free throw percentage. And they're facing a Utah State team who really locks it down on defense. They're in the top 10 in guarding the 3-pointer. They're limiting their competition to just 27% shooting in that category. When it comes to rebounding the basketball, the Aggies are a top 20 rebounding team on D. Now, Great Osobor, he's got a staggering 164 boards on the year. He's in the top 25 in rebounds per game. The 6'8" Brit is also the team's leading points getter. Meanwhile, Ian Martinez knocks down 40% of his long balls. The Aggies are 5-0 to the over in their last 5 as the official road team. They're also 60% to the over for the entire season. Give me Utah State +6 over 157. And with that, folks, now it's time for our quick pick recap. Tennessee -9.5 over 159. NC State -1.5 over 149 and a hook. Purdue -9 over 151. I'm 5-0 my last 5 college basketball tier membership package picks on my premium site. Cincinnati -2.5 over 151 and a hook. Pitt Panthers -7 under 146. Baylor +1 under 139.5. St. John's +1 over 147. Georgia Bulldogs +7.5 under 146 and a hook. Wisconsin -5.5 under 146. Kansas Jayhawks -6.5 under 140 and a hook. BYU -4 under 144. With my next and final free pick, give me Utah State +6 over 157. And with that, folks, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on my premium page. Now, if you do end up getting a membership here today on patreon.com/BrockPage, just a friendly reminder, you're going to get access to that membership every single day for the next 30 days. And as an added bonus, you're also going to get access to all of my cheaper memberships absolutely free. They're going to be included with your purchase. Our extra daily pick package is red hot. Our underdog package is red hot. We're 4-0 in our last 4 college basketball tier package plays. If you sign up for that membership, you're going to get access to that college basketball tier package play for the next 30 days. All the other memberships are going to be included with your purchase as well. And I'll tell you this much, if you want to access every single premium selection of mine, if you want the all-access pass, you may want to think about becoming a chairman member. The chairman membership, it's a full access, all-inclusive package. It gives you access to every single premium selection of mine, every single package, every single day for the next 30 days. And as an added bonus, you also get access to my chairman podcast absolutely free. It's included with your purchase. And like I said, all those hot packages, the extra daily pick, the underdog, the college basketball, those are all included with your purchase of the chairman membership. But most importantly, guys, gotta thank you for joining me right here on the free video. Really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. Is that a stain? Just noticed that. But anyway, happy Tuesday to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my premium site at patreon.com/BrockPage.